The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg. Democrats are not going to win if we have a nominee who has a history of hiding his tax returns, of harassing women, and of supporting racist policies like redlining and stop and frisk. Look, I'll support whoever.
Bloomberg had a dream scenario, which is that Bernie would be rising, creating a demand for a moderate, and that Biden would be fading and failing and falling, and that there would be a need for a hero to walk onto the stage and give people something to believe in. Yeah. His dream scenario turned into a nightmare tonight.
What happens when you have these delusions of grandeur that you will be the star of the show, that you would be the one that would get all of the applause, that you would be the one that would step down from the pantheon of billionaires and save America from the extreme socialism of helping people go see a doctor, of helping people just live a modest lifestyle? What happens when you thought that you were going to be the savior? It turns out you became the laughing stock of America. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is the day after. This is February 20th, Thursday, February 20th, 2020. Michael Bloomberg faced the nightmare scenario. He went in thinking that he was going to get thunderous applauses, and came out realizing that he should never have stepped on stage in the first place. I've been in a situation like that before. I wonder if you've ever been in a situation where you thought everyone was going to love you, and turns out that you were in the wrong lane, that you were doing something that you had no business doing, and that you should have stayed home. Big shouts to Elizabeth Warren for closing the deal. I will give credit where credit is due. I was a little disappointed that Bernie Sanders did not extract his esophagus from Michael Bloomberg when he had a shot. He had the first round. He had the first salvo, and he did not remove Bloomberg's political bowels from him in front of the whole planet to see. But Elizabeth Warren did. Oh, my goodness. Did she ever just grab him by the political throat and shook him until, well, listen in.
But understand this. Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another. This country has worked for the rich for a long time and left everyone else in the dirt. It is time to have a president who will be on the side of working families and be willing to get out there and fight for them. That is why I am in this race, and that is how I will beat Donald Trump.
Yeah. Okay. That was fire. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. And thankfully, like it was incomplete. And this was even before they brought up the audio that we released last week. This all happened in the first 5 minutes of the debate. And as the debate carried on, it was a bloodbath. It was the most contentious debate that I've seen in quite some time. And I wonder if we could see ourselves. I wonder if they could see themselves on stage. I wonder if Amy Klobuchar could see how Pete Buttigieg got her out of character, or is it that he got her out of character or revealed her true character, right? And does Pete ever see the fact that we see through him? Like we honestly see his smug condescension and his disdain. And the funny thing is like this happens with everybody, every person on that stage, everybody in real life, is that we think we're fooling people when in reality, people see us for what we are. The very thing that we try to hide so hard, we end up betraying ourselves and doing it right in front of everybody. So if Peter is trying to hide the fact that he's a smug little miscreant, let's just throw that random word in there just to avoid some profanity. If he thinks that he's hiding the fact that he is a pompous, arrogant, smug, condescending prick, then no, bad news, Pete. That's exactly who you're showing yourself to be. Amy Klobuchar showing herself to be like easily furious, not unraveled. She wasn't unraveled. She has a fury that lies underneath all of her corny jokes, right? And Mayor Pete just knew how to reveal it. Last night was about revealing ourselves to the people on stage, to America. It was the most revealing primary debate that we've had so far. Bloomberg, however, where I want to keep my focus, revealed something to me that I think is worthwhile writing down in our journals. Our gods are inept. Our overlords are incompetent. The oligarchs are impotent. They stand no chance against us, not when we stand on the same level. When they can stand on their tower of money and just pour money around, they seem infallible. They seem invincible. They seem like they're able to snatch democracy right away from us, from underneath us. But when they stand side by us, when we're on the same playing field, it shows that they are incompetent. And that they are not worthy of being our rulers. The oligarchs are not worthy of being our rulers. If this is the best they had to offer, then they better hide behind their money and never step on the stage of the mere mortals ever again. Because last night and this week, we have been slaying oligarchs, and we will continue to do so as much as we need to. Without question. Every time it is necessary for us to destroy our rulers. This is poetic, right? This is why I guess I'm phrasing it in the way that I'm phrasing it this morning, because this all powerful, this man who has the ability to purchase the full-time labor of over 1 million people at the median income. I want you to make sure you heard me. You take the median income, $56,000. And he can employ 1 million of us, 40 hours a week or more. That's how much he's worth. And he'll still be a billionaire. This man whose money made him seem godlike in this political conversation, right? We're clearly talking about politics. We're not talking about any type of metaphysical, anything, supernatural, anything. We're just talking about politics. From the political point of view, so long as he stayed outside of the fray, he seemed invincible and immortal, politically speaking. But he messed up and came down to our level, and we killed our gods. We slayed our oligarchs. They're not that impressive after all. They are not that impressive after all. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, keep in mind that this guy has enough money to buy his way out of this. Absolutely. And this is the challenge. The challenge is when we're competing with money, we cannot win. But when we're competing with character and we get to put ourselves side by side, we are going to win every single time, because there's something that's born out of the struggle that these guys and women, whoever they are, whatever the demographic makeup is of our ruling elite, they simply have not had to deal with. Maybe they deal with it when they were younger. Maybe they were poor when they were younger, but they have been in a position of privilege for so long that they absolutely have no idea what it is to carry the burden, to carry the pressure of poverty and being in the working class and living on the edge, constantly living on the edge of hopelessness, right? I'm not glamorizing our struggle. What the hell's a struggle? I'm not glamorizing our struggle. I'm just saying that there's something born out of our struggle that these billionaires will never understand. And that's exactly what gives us the edge. Listen to this. This is one example of Bernie Sanders responding in a way to these accusations that was very necessary. And I'm glad he brought this heat. Listen.
Democratic socialism, not communism, Mr. Bloomberg. That's a cheap shot. Let's talk about democratic. Let's talk about what goes on in countries like Denmark, where Pete correctly pointed out they have a much higher quality of life in many respects than we do. What are we talking about? We are living in many ways in a socialist society right now. Problem is, as Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, we have socialism for the very rich, rugged individualism for the poor.
Wait a second.
Let me finish. When Donald Trump gets $800 million in tax breaks and subsidies to build luxury condominiums, that's socialism for the rich. Wait, Walmart, we have to subsidize Walmart's workers who are on Medicaid and food stamps because the wealthiest family in America pays starvation wages. That's socialism for the rich. I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all, educational opportunity for all.
That was too much. Oh, cover our ears, Senator. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator. That's enough. Oh, cover our ears. It pained them to hear that, right? It pains them to hear the truth. This is a fascinating time in our history, guys, ladies and gentlemen, non-gender conforming individuals. It is an amazing time in our history where they are doing all that they can to stop the working class. And let me tell you something. Whether you know it or not, you are in the working class. You may make decent money and consider yourself in the middle class, middle income. But the fact that you have to get up and use your labor to survive, means that you are in the working class. You're the ones that get up and go to work. Now, I know there's an economic difference. I know that there's some people who are doing well enough. I'm not going to draw the equivalence between people who are starving, people who are making decisions between taking their insulin or paying their rent, and people who have $1,000 in their bank account, right? There's a big difference between the two. But when we are compared to these oligarchs, the oligarchs who attempted to come down and steal democracy from us, the people who make so much money that they could buy our democracy with their pocket change. They could buy our democracy with the interest that they get every month, right? Their wealth is increasing exponentially at a rate that is unbelievable. So much so that the interest that they make on their investments will buy our democracy. Unless you have that kind of money, you are not on their side. You are on our side, because they will steal democracy from us. What do you think they would do to you? They will steal Medicare for all from us. What do you think they're going to do? Whose tax credits are they going to get rid of first? Do you think they're going to get rid of theirs? No. You middle class bloke who's making $125,000, $150,000 a year, you are the first person they're going to come after. So have some solidarity about you.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
And here we go. It's that time again, ladies and gentlemen, non-gender conforming individuals. Very special welcome to all of our newest patrons. Very special welcome to Josh. Thank you for becoming a patron. Sean Daughtry. Thank you for becoming a patron. Greg Tewksbury. Burrell Poe. Hillary Reddick. Okay. Thanks, Nah, for becoming a patron. Bobby Lehman, Jeremy Good. Oh, actually, Jeremy, you just commented. Thank you for the comment, Jeremy. Cameron Covington, G. Carlson, Andrea Burns, Tony Toth, Philip Chance Donahoe. I hope I got that right. David Gillespie, Black Hand Jack, Ali Hassani, Elaine Cutright, Andrew M. Edward Jenkins, BT Motley, Matthew Laub. Very special welcome to Rajiv Venkat, Henrik E, and Robert Kimball. Thank you all so much for becoming patrons. I think I need to include Jimmy Baum, Pre Kumar, as well as Scott Ricketts, Christopher Yarbrough. Thank you for becoming patrons. And I think I've covered everyone. I think I finally made it through a day where I could give everyone the proper credit for and thanks for becoming a patron. You too can join this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show. Get access to twice as much show without any ads. I am offended by ads. I hate ads. I mean, that's the irony of it. Like, I have ads everywhere, but I'm offended by them, but we have to pay the bills. And thank you all so much. We're in a much better position to actually continue the work and expand upon the work. And I want to continue the conversation. I want you to hear to this next part from Van Jones. His clip was revealing to me. Listen, and well, we'll discuss.
That is what happened. Now, he's got enough ad cover that it may not even matter, because every other ad for the rest of your life is going to be on Bloomberg. But something about that should be troubling to even people who like Bloomberg. This should have been an opportunity for him to put to bed a whole series of questions that have been troubling people for the past 2 weeks. His stop and frisk answer was just terrible. He pretended that he somehow didn't know that African-American men in this town and Latino and Latinos and others in this town were suffering. There were lawsuits. There were protests. He didn't acknowledge that. When Elizabeth Warren asked a question about the NDA, he just didn't know how to deal with it. These are the kinds of things that somebody who wants to be president of the United States, who wants to be commander-in-chief, you've got to be able to handle those things so he can hear you on the other things. And he failed tonight. He did.
One of our fatal flaws in life is to be too confident in our abilities, to be overconfident. That's one lesson that I continuously learn. I do a lot in public, just not in politics yet. I'm on stage almost every week, and I'm always in front of a crowd. And let me tell you, and I've done it most of my life, right? I've just yet to really do it in politics. I'm going to start doing it more. Like, we'll start doing some live shows and live events and some speaking engagements. But I'm saying this to say that I am on stage on a regular basis. And every single time I get on stage, I get terrifyingly nervous. I know that's wrong. I get terrified and I get nervous, and you feel it in the bottom of your pit of your stomach, and your heart starts palpitating, and you can hear your heart pounding in your ears. And if it's really bad, you can feel your legs shaking in your pants. I don't know if you've ever been there. I've been there. What I've come to realize is to be grateful for that feeling, because that means I have not presumed that I am ready, or that I am overconfident in my capacity. Fear reminds you, nervousness reminds you that you got to work a little bit harder. Last night, what we saw was the arrogance that is afforded to billionaires to think that they could go into any scenario without any significant practice. Because what I saw last night was not only the impotence of our oligarchs, of our overlords, but also the arrogance and the lack of preparation. Like, just some simple talking points. I mean, when all else fails, at least Pete has some talking points, right? And he holds to them. It was almost like this guy, Bloomberg, got on stage and never thought that people would have the nerve to ask him these questions. You don't get that kind of arrogance when you are a working class cat. You know, when you go to work every single day, and you're always thrown the bad lot, right? The bad hand. You always get the bad hand. See, when you always get the bad hand in life, you kind of come over prepared. It's people like us who get the bad hand, who would have showed up to that debate last night with 40 pages written by hand, prepared for that debate. Right? We would have practiced 12 hours a day if we had to. There's no way we would have gotten on that stage and not have been prepared to answer the questions that we assume in our life, in our walk. We assume that people will have the nerve to ask us these questions. In their world, Bloomberg never presumed for a minute that people would have the nerve to ask him about that question, about his statement. How else can you explain it? I could be completely wrong, and I have no problem being wrong, but I would venture to say that he did not prepare, and he told his people around him, I've got it under control. Don't just keep running ads. And then he got on stage and revealed to us the impotence of our overlords, of our rulers. They're not ready for us. They're not prepared for us common people. All they have is money. They don't have the preparation. They don't have the talent. They don't have the intuition. They don't have the nerves. They can't handle this. They cannot handle what we can bring to the table. The only question is when do we get our opportunity to be on the same level? Right? They can sit in their thrones of opulence as much as they want and just rain down money like lightning on us, destroying our best laid efforts. But it's when they have to step down and stand side by side that we see their fallibility. We see their incompetence, their impotence, and their money means nothing. He can buy his way out of this, like your guy, like he said. He could buy his way out of this with $100 million, and people would tend to forget. But I don't know. People who never saw last night will forget. But $100 million will not erase the memories of what happened to Mayor Bloomberg last night. Okay, I'm done with this. When we come back, I'm going to discuss the next move of the Democratic Party to stop Bernie Sanders. And we're going to turn up just a little bit.
most critical question tonight was when the moderator asked, look, if somebody heads into the convention and they have the most delegates, but they have not hit the threshold, does that automatically make them Democratic nominee? And everybody said no, except for Bernie Sanders. I think that's indicative of what we're going to see. These candidates are going to continue fighting forward. They're not necessarily going to fall in line just because Bernie's in the lead. And I think this is going to be a long and hopefully productive conflict going forward in the campaign.
They want so bad to find a way to stop Bernie Sanders. Ladies and gentlemen, every single candidate on that stage said that they want to let the rules of the Democratic Party play out, which translates into if there's not sufficient lead in the first round of delegates, that they would take it to the second round in which the super delegates can get involved and take the nomination away from Bernie Sanders. Everyone from Bloomberg all the way down to Elizabeth Warren said that exact thing, meaning that they were 4 years ago, all of them were willing to let the popular vote win, right? And transparently, Bernie Sanders 4 years ago was like, no, if we go to a second ballot, we go to a second ballot and let it be what it's going to be. Everyone will utilize power to their advantage, right? Everyone will utilize rules to their advantage. Here's the thing about rules, though. It's when you change the rules in order to help billionaires get on the stage in the first place. I mean, thank you for letting them get on the stage, right? We appreciate that. But the fact that you're willing to use the rules to try to stop the movement of the people. And now you're saying, well, now we're going to obey the rules to try to stop the movement of the people. Bottom line is you're trying to stop Democratic Party, the movement of the people. You're trying. And people want to know my motivation. Let me tell you something. This has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. Can I tell you that? I just started supporting Bernie Sanders about a month ago. OK, obviously, I always leaned towards him. I supported him in 2016, but I did my patent best, my wholesale best. I gave it my best effort to support Elizabeth Warren. You all you stayed with me through that painful experience, right? And so I came back to Bernie Sanders. This has nothing to do with him. I told you that there's really nothing that can be done to stop the working people of this country from getting from this country what we deserve. More so than that, there's nothing that they can do to stop us from building the type of society that we believe that we should have, right? A society that builds on top of the best of us instead of tearing us down like a cancer and then destroying. Everything about our society is designed to destroy ourselves, to destroy itself, to destroy society itself, right? Everything from the way we treat our environment to the way we engage in capitalism to the way we treat working people. It is all about exploiting and extracting everything we can from it and then abandoning it when it dies. Except for with our planet, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do but die with the planet. And so the most important thing to me, period, is the fact that we use this electoral process to shape the future in a way that we survive and that we progress. And I've been saying on my show for some time, the only way they can stop that is if they suspended democracy. And with Michael Bloomberg stepping down from the pantheon of billionaires so that he could fix this problem himself, that was an example of them suppressing our vote and suspending democracy. It did not work because, as it turns out, our overlords are inept. Fine. And as soon as they realized that they could not depend on the gods of money to stop this, every person on that stage, every person on MSNBC's panel shifted to this plan C of a contested convention. All of a sudden, it became, well, this is just what we do. This is just how it goes. 4 years ago, it was like, this is not what we do. It's going to be too divisive. Everyone is willing to adjust to information based on how that information either confirms or challenges their desired outcome. In other words, here's a piece of information. Bernie Sanders is going to get the popular vote and have the most delegates. 4 years ago, that was Hillary Clinton. And because that confirmed, that's what they wanted. That's what they all of a sudden changed their narrative to meet that, to match that. Well, the person we want is going to have all the votes. So, of course, we're going to stand by the popular vote, not the superdelegate, not a contested convention, not a second round. But now the exact same scenario is happening with someone who threatens their power and they shift their position. Oh, no, we can't have that. We have to go with the rules. And if the rules say a contested convention, not just because I'm a political science professor, but I also just want to see it play out. It'd be the first one that we've seen in our lifetime, Jason Johnson. But we can see it all over your face. You're not interested in the historical aspect of this. You're interested in stopping Bernie Sanders by any means necessary. And you think that we can't see you through the lens. Like, it's like the spotlight is on these people. If I could go just wherever this is, I don't know, is it metaphorical or just waxing philosophical? Who cares? They feel like people like Jason Johnson and that entire panel. Let's use Chris Matthews. Chris Matthews believes that there's something between the camera and his face that helps conceal the truth about what he is thinking. But we can see through everything that he says. Underlying everything he says is a terrifying notion that this establishment can be at risk because Bernie Sanders is getting ready to win. And everything he says can be interpreted through that lens. And I don't know if he thinks he's fooling anybody, but is anybody watching this guy, Chris Matthews or Jason Johnson, and thinking that they're engaging in good faith? Not for a second. Not even the people who support you. The people who support you applaud you because you're engaging in the propaganda that is necessary for their victory, right? But they do know you're full of shit. The rest of us who know that what you're doing is for the purposes of suppressing this democratic movement that is demanding more from our ruling class. And we can see through your bullshit. It's like, do you honestly think we cannot see you? All right, enough of that. Here's the point. The point is, well, actually, no, before I give you the point, and we discuss a whole lot more in the patrons party, I want you to hear just how terrified they actually are.
Is anybody panicked besides me in that it does look like Sanders is rolling and that 2/3 of this country thinks we're going in the right direction and you have a guy who wants to burn it down? To me, I just don't see him having any shot in a general election. I'm panicked. I am absolutely panicked.
Well, Donnie, get a paper bag and breathe into it.
That's Donnie Deutsch and Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe. They're terrified. They're horrified because Bernie Sanders is going to win. And Bernie Sanders is not, you're trying to cast it. You're trying to convince us that you're concerned that Bernie Sanders, this is the most laughable thing. From behind the bright lights of MSNBC, Rockefeller Center in New York, the bright lights are shining on Donnie Deutsch right now. And he believes that he's conveying to us a genuine concern that Bernie Sanders won't beat Trump. But we're seeing him directly for what he is. He's trying to hide that, but it's clear as day. His real concern is not the fact that Bernie Sanders will lose to Donald Trump. It's the fact that Bernie Sanders will win to Donald Trump. And he's trying to engage in some rhetorical jujitsu to try to convince us that he's really concerned about the well-being of America because there's no way Bernie Sanders can win. Right? And the hilarious thing about it is we see right through the bullshit. You're not fooling anybody, Donnie. You're not fooling anybody, Jason Johnson. None of you are fooling anybody. I mean, maybe you're fooling the people who want to be fooled. Here's the deal. We'll talk about this more. And actually, more importantly, is the demand. I've got a whole lot to talk about, but the demand that we're putting in front of the Democratic Party is simply this. In any form or fashion that you steal democracy from us, we will take power from you by not voting for you and by organizing against you. I don't care up or down ballot. Anybody who steals democracy from us, we will organize against you and make sure that you pay for it for the rest of your political careers. This is not a threat. This is a promise. You will not take democracy from us. Patrons, I'll see you in about 5 seconds.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.